All right. So in my previous video, I showed how raw source data can be moved from the bronze layer to the silver layer, and the types of basic data sanity checks and validations that we could perform on them. So if you haven't watched my previous video, then please watch it, as it would help you get the correct context for this video. And also demonstrated the process of implementing a slowly changing dimension type 2 in the data lake. As I mentioned in part 1 of the article, I personally prefer SCD implemented in the silver layer. The data warehouse in the gold layer should hold only operational data and nothing else. But again, that's just my personal opinion and not a hard and fast rule. So in this video, I'll execute the complete process, that is right from the data load to the bronze layer and movement of that data to the silver layer, and the eventual load across the entities in the star schema dimensional model data warehouse in the gold layer. So I would do that through the Fabric data pipeline and would perform some basic data sanity checks and validations in the data warehouse. In the previous video, I had performed them in the data lake. All right. So in my previous video, I executed a notebook as a standalone execution, but now the notebook would be part of the data pipeline. So to get started, I'll use the same PowerShell script that I used in my previous video to upload the source file onto the bronze layer. So this is the same source file that I used in my previous video. So I'll just upload the file. Okay, the files got uploaded to the bronze layer, and now we'll just cross check if there are any entities present in the data lake and do the same. So there are none, and just ensure that there is no data across the tables in the data warehouse. I mean, you can use this the UI, the Fabric data warehouse UI, or you can use the SSMS like I've used the SQL Server Management Studio to connect to the Fabric data warehouse. I personally would prefer the SSMS as I'm more hands on that tool than this one. All right, so that's done. So we'll upload the data. I will execute the process. So this is the data pipeline that I created. So the first step in the data pipeline will be execution of notebook. So where this is where all the basic data sanity checks, validations, and data cleansing happens uh, for moving the data from bronze layer to the silver layer. And these are the stored procedures. So this stored procedure would basically load the category dimension table. So if you go here, so this is the stored procedure name, load dim category. I'll show that to you here in the SSMS. Okay, so these are the four stored procedures, and this is the one that would load the supplier dimensional data. This would load the product data, and this would load the customer data. And post execution of the dimensional data loading, there's another stored procedure called as load fax load fax sales. So this would load the fax sales data after mapping all the underlying dimensional IDs. Okay, so let's start the execution. We'll just parallelly we can just check. Just zoom in, zoom out a bit. Let's check the data in the data warehouse. Okay, we are starting to get some data in the warehouse. Okay, the product data is loaded now. I rather prefer the SSMS because this is too cluttered for me. I rather prefer the right. So that's done. I think the execution is completed. Okay, it's complete. Okay, so let's do a basic data check. So we have dim category. So like 5 records, customer, product, fact sales. Right, we got 204 rows. Okay, let's do some random data changes and check if those data changes get reflected into your data warehouse. So one of the data change, I'll just make some changes across the, say example, the unit price or quantity, some of the facts data. So let's take an user. Let's take this user. So I'll change the unit price to 500 and change this to, just before that, let me copy the existing data. Okay, so it's 50 and 250. I'll change that from 50 to 500 and 2500 to 250 to 2500. Okay, re-upload. It's done. I'll re-execute the pipeline again. So by that time, I'll just put the, okay, I already have a query ready wherein we can query the entire data. And what was the cu dot customer name equal to was name Jason Rosario. That's taken too long. So original data was for unit price. It was 50 and total sales was 250. Let me just swap this column. I mean, put them in the correct order. Unit price. Okay. Now it's got uploaded. It's got updated. Its execution is done. Let's just confirm this in the Fabric UI, the query UI. Where is this? Okay, I'll just copy paste it here. Okay, so you have the unit price 500 and total sales as 2050, while the original value, the earlier value was 50 and 250. Let's go back to the silver layer, and if it has logged in the original data, so it was under. Let me refresh this. So they should have it. It should have a table called archive. Okay. Yep. So the original value was 50 for unit price and total sales was 250. Now the change value in the warehouse is 500 and 2500. Let's do some additional changes to the other attributes. Say for example, let's change an email ID of one of the users. Let's change this from Hotmail to Microsoft, and change make this 50 and make this 20. I'll copy this. Sorry, I'll copy the original value first. Okay, so we have for Jerry Edwards, we have changed the email ID to Microsoft.com, and the unit sales from 500 to 50, and the total sales from the unit price from 500 to 50, and total sales from 200 to 20. All right, let me save this real quick. Okay, saved. I'll upload this file. Okay, the upload's done. Now I'll just re-execute the pipeline again, and in the meantime I'll keep the query ready. What's the name of the customer? Cherry Edwards. So this is the original value for this customer. The unit price 500 and 200, and the pipeline still running. Okay, let's wait for the pipeline to complete. The performance of this pipeline is not that optimal, but again, the goal of this video is not focused on the performance aspect of the process, but rather the, the entire conceptual aspect of the process. It is done. Okay, I'll do a quick check. Okay, got changed from 500 to 50 here, and for total sales from 200 to 20. We'll again just do a double check in the fabric query window. Okay, 500 to, sorry, what was the name? Sorry, I need to change it to Jerry Edwards here. Okay. Okay. Change from 50 and from 500 to 50 and 200 to 20. And let's go back to the silver layer and check if it has tracked the original values. It has recorded the original values. Yep, you have the entry for Cherry Edwards, and you should have values before the update. Yeah, so you have these values in there. These values for unit price and 200. So these are the values before the update. All right, so that's all for this video, and I hope you have an better understanding of how Medallion architecture can be implemented in a Fabric ecosystem. All right, and Another point I wanted to make is that this dimensional model, this can act as a source for your semantic model. For example, down the line, if you want to use this data over to the in the Power BI for your say, as a source, you can use that. I mean, this dimensional model would act as a your source of truth for your Power BI model. All right. Thank you very much.